Hello and welcome back to the only show that thought we saw a Muslim woman steal our blurg meat on a surveillance video, or as we like to say, a blurry blurger burglar in a burqa lair. I'm Max.
I'm Luke.
And I'm Matt.
And this is Force for Thought.
All right, I don't have the luxury. Oh, sorry, is the music over? Ah, geez, you'll have to edit this.
Yeah.
I don't have the luxury of rewinding like the listener at home, so hit me again with the punchline because it fires on all cylinders, but it was a little too quick for me.
A blurry blurger burglar in a burqa lair.
Fire.
The burqa layer.
Fire joke.
Okay, I was wondering how the Muslim woman came into play, and I was like, this is going to take such a dicey turn, but it was the burqa. It was the burqa.
Keeps you on the edge of your seat.
It did. I was holding my breath for a minute.
A blurry. Never mind.
And the blurg meat is a blurger.
Oof. Max, oh man, that's a lot. I assume that's a little. I feel like that's a good nod, even if you didn't intend it to be, just to a little bit of a blah blah blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm trying to say.
You know, there's a reason that's my favorite TV show of all time. That humor is right up my alley. So yes.
I love a good tongue twister as much as the next guy too. Although I don't like that show as much as you guys. I don't dislike it. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Mandalorian Season 1, Episode 2. Continuing the rewatch. Thank you for bearing with us last week with the horrible leadership that was apparent throughout the entire episode. Not to mention my microphone was effed up for the last 2 weeks now. So thank you for bearing with me through that. I'm sure it was just as frustrating for everyone else that likes to hear me talk more than anyone else on this podcast. So I stand with you, fellow listeners, that it was agonizing, but it should be all better now. And we're here to talk about Mandalorian Season 1, Episode 2, titled The Child. I watched it an hour ago. I loved it. Matt, what'd you guys think? We'll start with Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I know last week we talked a lot about the overarching view of the show as well as mixing with episode 1. I'm going to try not to do that just because we're not, we can't do that every single week. With that being said, this is the last little bit, is that I feel like this episode is where I started to realize what the show is going to be in the long run, in the fact that they have a big A storyline, but it's going to get interrupted by a lot of mini mishaps. The Razor Crest getting torn apart by Jawas. He needs to now go and do, side mission A and B in order for the bigger storyline to continue. And so I think that's one of my biggest takeaways. With that being said, I think out of the whole show, this episode does it pretty well. I think this episode's fun. The Mudhorn is a blast to watch. Grogu, still known as the Child, obviously, if that's what the episode is called, gets to use the Force for the first time, which is really exciting. So rewatching it, I did still have those feelings when I watched it the first time around. That excitement, it's the start of this whole journey. So I liked it. Maxwell.
I liked it. This might have been the second time I've ever watched it. I don't think I've ever actually gone back and rewatched it this episode since it came out, because I remember it was just like a filler episode. And I remember everything that happened in it. But going back and rewatching it, it was more fun than I remember. But I think a large part of that is knowing to expect a little bit of a left turn, because it is definitely irrelevant to the plot that they kind of established in the first episode. Like, you kind of want that to keep going and keep getting resolved. And I think I never really liked this episode as much because this is when it started to kind of dawn that, like, oh, maybe the format isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Yes.
So, I'm kind of disappointed. It's not my favorite format. I don't like the monster of the week. Every week you go on a different side mission or, some new adventure. I like just a single story. So the format isn't my favorite. But now that I kind of accepted that, I do think I was able to enjoy this episode a lot more. Because there are a ton of things to enjoy. I mean, watching the Jawas get disintegrated is always going to be satisfying. The fight between Mandalorian and the
Mudhorn?
The Bosk species.
Trandoshans?
Oh, never mind.
No, like Trandoshans, thank you, was satisfying. No, his fight against the Mudhorn was anything kind of anticlimactic, in my opinion. The only thing is that it serves, obviously, a major plot point of establishing that the Child is Force sensitive.
Yeah.
But I think this show probably would have benefited a lot from having the first 3 episodes have been a batch release, because I feel like by the time a week passed and we got this episode, a lot of people heavily suspected that he was going to be force sensitive. So it's like that was kind of the big reveal at the end of the episode, and it just kind of like falls flat a little bit. But when you take away that, first watch impressions and you just kind of go back to enjoy it, I did like it a lot more. Overall, I'd give this episode maybe like a 6 out of 10.
I felt similarly. Being able to appreciate it for what it is, now that I know it's not advancing the plot substantially. Like, the Grogu part is not nothing. Like, that is an incredibly important story beat for the show as a whole. But it's just a beat in this entire episode. I've been thinking a lot about our discussion on fan service and how we went through all those fan service moments, and I was like, oh, I like this one, I like this one, I like this one. And then we started talking more about the different creators and how Rian Johnson and Tony Gilroy and George Lucas don't do much fan service. And those are all of my favorite creators by like which projects I like the most. And so if I'm comparing it strictly to fan service or not fan service, it would imply based on data that I don't like fan service, but like when I'm watching it, I can't deny that I'm liking this, and that's how I feel with this. Like, obviously, I would prefer Andor. Like, I like Andor better than The Mandalorian. I like one cohesive, good story rather than Monster of the Week. But if we're getting Monster of the Week, they're doing it great for what it is. I loved this episode. I was expecting not to as much, but the whimsical and joyful, delightful nature of the Jawas and the story, Kuil, it was just a good time. Like, it wasn't Andor, but the show's not Andor, even though and sometimes it tries to. I won't say that. Sometimes it's not as whimsical as this episode. Especially with episode 1 right before, which we can't talk about episode 1 because we already had that last week. I mean, we talked about the tone of episode 1 was darker than we all remember, and now I feel like episode 2, the tone is lighter than the whole show. So I wonder if it's just this pendulum swinging back and forth the whole series, and that's going to be my takeaway from this rewatch series that we're doing. But yeah, so far, I mean, episode 1 hard, dark and gritty. Episode 2 light and airy, and it was great. Both are good, but yeah, I like this episode.
Joyful and light and airy is like the perfect way to describe it, Luke, actually. Like, I mean, Star Wars in general, right? I feel like it has a joyfulness to it. It's about, I think it's finding those small moments in this turmoil that is the Galactic War and stuff too, or Galactic Civil Wars, or who knows whatever's going on, whatever war is going on currently. And it's interesting when we're talking about Monster of the Week, and it's odd because I agree Mandalorian goes into Monster of the Week eventually, but I also feel like it's a big distinction. And tell me if you guys think this is stupid. I have a feeling you might, but like, instead of, and I'm not sure exactly what this would be called, but instead of Monster of the Week, and when I think Monster of the Week, it's completely separate from any sort of story. It's in a different place, it's a different location. And Monster of the Week, right, when you're thinking X-Files, they're all over the country, they're all over the US and the world, and they have a completely new set of background characters with a completely new set of tasks at hand. And I think that's why when I was mentioning like side quest A and B, that I think season 1 does that very well. Even though I don't love it, it's a little different, I think, than Monster of the Week, because I think in season 2 and 3, they do go to these random places that have nothing to do and are completely disconnected from the story. But I think season 1, they have like a pretty thin story, and they need to come up with a bunch of different tasks in order for it to come together. And so, like, again, like with the Jawa stuff, it's like, oh, a whole episode is just basically bogged down because of this side quest that they now have to do because somebody stole his, parts to his ship. I don't know if that's a huge distinction for you guys or not, but I just kind of came to that conclusion now as we were talking.
It's not. I
find that interesting.
Again, I'm going to have to rewatch the rest of Mandalorian before I can commit to this take, but if any of the Mandalorian is Monster of the Week filler, whatever you want to call it, it's this episode. I don't think it will ever get more unrelated to the overarching plot than season 1, episode 2. I'm trying to think in my head. Like the Frog Lady episode, it's basically the same thing. He's just trying to leave that planet and he gets stuck. And So he has to take Frog Lady. What are the other filler episodes? People like to say that the Jack Black and Lizzo one are filler, but that there's a lot of.
I mean, episodes 4, 5, and 6 of season 1 are very fillery. They're good filler. I'm
Oh,
not
the
saying
prison
that
one.
Half the
they're
season?
necessarily bad.
Yeah.
Oh
But,
yeah.
yeah, the one where you introduce Cara Dune and they're fighting that ATST in the jungle. The one where they're in the prison and the
Toro
what
Calican,
was the
of
other one
course.
this
Yes.
season? Toro Calican, yeah.
Yeah, it's totally Monster of the Week, which is not exclusively bad. Where is Monster of the Week derived from? Is it X-Files? Like what show is that?
I mean, I think what popularized it, I would say, but I don't know if it probably had another name before that, but that's definitely
Is it just
like the X-Files term that we use.
most of the TV I have watched in my life has been from the mid to late 2000s, so that's all my experience. But is it just because, like, the examples that I think of are Burn Notice and Smallville, because I watched those shows, and those were very Monster of the Week, where there was an entire story every week, and then 2 or 3 minutes of an overarching plot at the end. And I like those shows, but those aren't necessarily monsters either. There must have been some show that did this with monsters. I'm trying to think, because X-Files isn't about monsters either, is it?
Yeah, it's I mean, so X-Files is. I mean, I can talk about X-Files all day, but I'm not. I'll keep it really short. Is that they have the overarching story, which is like the shadow government conspiracy stuff, and then they have Monster of the Week episodes, which is when Scully and Mulder go on these fun adventures attempting to track down basically the monster of the week. They're in a different town in rural Ohio, in southern Delaware, and they're trying to figure out some sort of mystery, right? Whether it's a physical actual monster, whether it's an extraterrestrial, something otherworldly, other being.
ChatGPT.
So I can't confirm or deny.
ChatGPT says it's from
X-Files.
the X-Files and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Is Buffy a lot of Monster of the Week? I didn't watch that either.
Yes, both two of my favorite shows.
This guy likes Monster of the Week shows.
I do. But they do them very, very well.
So, all that to say, we're on board for the format of Mandalorian Season 1, at least. We can start going more scene by scene as we get into it. The opening with Mando and Grogu walking through the rocks, and then fighting the Trandoshans.
I love this is
Go ahead.
Like an iconography, I feel like, of the show. This is one of the first images I feel like we saw of like them using the volume and everything too, like at the time. Like when I think of Mandalorian, I feel like this shot has gotten lost on people, but like this was to me one of the things that we saw, when we first were introduced to these characters, kind of like from behind the scenes stuff. And I love that shot. And Mando was actually a good fighter. Sorry, I'm passionate about that scene.
He crushed it this time.
Yes, because as you know, I consistently am like, Din Djarin is not good at what he does, and then this is he's very good at what he does.
Yeah, he proved his chops in that fight. And the Trandoshans looked great in that scene. And again, not to constantly shit on the Book of Boba Fett, but I'm like, why do they look so much better here than they do in Book of Boba Fett? Because it's like I know it's the same
Yes, it is the same.
suits, it's the same masks, it's whatever.
I will outright
Changing is
refute
just how
this
they're
one.
shooting it and how they're doing.
I don't need to
everything.
rewatch Book of Boba Fett right now to tell you that the Trandoshans in Book of Boba Fett look the exact same as the Trandoshans in The Mandalorian.
They look better in Mandalorian for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it's because you don't focus on their face and because they're not talking, and so it just doesn't accent it as much. But I don't know.
I mean, that could be. You see less of them.
But I mean, sometimes less is more. I mean, when you see a Trandoshan talk for too long, or spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about this more this episode. When you see Kuiil talk too much, it just really takes you out of it because you're like, that doesn't really look good.
I am no stranger to practical puppets talking and looking bad and being bothered by that. But yeah, that scene's sick. We get to see the vaporizer for the first time, which I don't know if that's more or less grotesque in terms, because we also talked a lot last week about the tone and whether it's child appropriate and how violent is too violent for the tone, and how that is also a pendulum that swings. Is vaporizing someone more humane than shooting them in the back and seeing their body fall? I think it is.
I would say absolutely not. And I think the context is just hysterical. Like, these are just Jawas. Like, he could have basically just run up there and just been like, hey, like, get the hell out of here. And instead, he just instinctively starts vaporizing them. No questions asked. No less lethal means attempted. He just goes straight to the big gun.
Yes.
And I think that's
The
hysterical.
Jawas is its own matter. I'm talking strictly the Trandoshan fight. He shoots the last Trandoshan in the back and vaporizes him. And I mean, purely for MPAA ratings, would it be more graphic or less graphic if he used a slug rifle and shot him in the back and his body thudded down? I think it would be more
That's
graphic to see
interesting.
that. I think the vaporizing,
I think so,
even
too.
though it is like in theory more vicious. I don't know. It seems more painless. You definitely instant death.
Is it just a matter of what is seen versus what is implicated? Because it's like, obviously, going back to episode 1 in the intro when he cuts that guy's body in half by chopping him in the door or whatever, it's like you hear the flesh squelching and like the lower half thudding on the floor, and like you kind of see like the feet hit the floor, but like obviously it doesn't show you like the cut. It doesn't show you blood gushing out or like, you know, a severed half or anything like that. And like, it doesn't change what happened. Like, everybody knows exactly what happened, but it's just like the visual of it, I think. And so I think if you saw like a hole get blasted into the back of a Trandoshan, it would be worse for ratings than if he just kind of disappears.
I agree. And so I like the vaporizer in that scene. I agree that in the next scene, he starts doing it to Jawas,
it's more-
and it is not warranted.
It's more child friendly.
And they're also like half his size, so it really doesn't feel.
And they have one of
Yeah, it
Matt's
feels
5 favorite
pretty
costumes
brutal.
in all of Star Wars.
They do. I like the Jawas. They're cool. This is not a dig.
I like the Jawas, but Matt, they don't even have the 5th best costume in this episode of The Mandalorian.
When you see them in person, that's one of the coolest things. I love seeing someone in a Jawa outfit. I've seen a million Mandalorian. Doesn't do it for me. If you see a Jawa at a con, that's doing it for me.
That's crazy to me. We see Grogu try to heal Mando, probably, given context from further episodes. Didn't really have too much to say about that one, other than he puts a lot of effort into fixing his chest plate, which then gets immediately destroyed by the Mudhorn anyway. So that was tough to see. The Jawas steal his stuff, and he has a very whimsical, I'll say, but in a good way. I don't want to. Whimsical's positive. Positively whimsical experience chasing down that sand crawler and climbing up it. That was a fun scene. I know it doesn't advance the plot, and I know this is the story is contrived at this point just for contriving its sake, but I still like it. That was fun.
Yeah, I think it also opens up
Yeah.
the world. You know, I feel like you get to see what we're doing here. I like it too. Because the show was so
I like
new,
seeing
you know.
one-sided fights like that, you know, because it's like the Jawas had everything going for them, but like Mandalorian's just bigger and stronger and everything. So I don't know. I like that scene a lot. I like seeing him try to rappel up the side of the sandcrawler. What's the word I'm looking for? That wouldn't technically be rappel.
Yeah,
would it?
rappel is
What's the
exclusively
opposite of
down.
rappel?
Is it just climb?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound right.
That doesn't.
But I like it because it reminds me a lot of that iconic shot from the Adam West Batman and Robin when they're scaling the side of the building. Matt, I'm sure you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
I do. I have a poster in my bathroom that you and your wife gifted me when we were in college.
Did we gift that to you? I did not remember that. But I was going to say, I remember
I was
that we
like-
had that
I
picture
was like-
in college.
I was
of the
like, yeah,
person coming out the door or
was-
the window.
I now was like, Sammy Davis Jr. actually. But I was like, wait, did I steal that from you guys or something?
That's right. It was never mine, so you definitely didn't steal it. I'm going to say that we gifted it to you. 'cause
You
that sounds
did,
better.
yeah. It was for either my birthday or Christmas, Hanukkah, something like that.
But yeah, I like that. I like when they're like opening the windows and just like trying to throw stuff at him, and then he finally gets to the top, and there's just 10 Jawas that just like instantly tase him with their cannon guns. I don't know what it is, if that's like even like a real blaster or whatever. And then he just falls down, and it's like, yeah, they do have weapons. Like, of course, like, you know what I mean? So I was like, oh, that makes sense. I don't know. I like it. I like that whole sequence.
They don't shoot it as gratuitously as Peter Jackson in Lord of the Rings, but Mando and Grogu sure do a lot of walking in this episode. Because he had to take the Mudhorn
indeed.
from Kuil to the compound, and then he walked from the compound back to his ship, and then from his ship back to Kuil. That's a lot of walking. It's a good thing Grogu has this hover pod.
Yeah, they would have been screwed.
And they have to rebuild the ship, essentially. There's multiple time jumps in this episode that are weird, that I'm like, you definitely didn't show how much time has actually passed, because there's like a weird montage at the end of them reassembling the ship, and it makes it seem like they just kind of like threw it back together in a night, but it's like this thing was pretty disassembled.
Yes,
Like,
this thing
we've
took
been here
weeks.
for months.
Mando
Yeah.
said it would take days in a dedicated mechanic shop, and then Kuil has that nice line, it'll be faster if you help. I like to think that Kuil is like he's obviously a good craftsman or whatever, mechanic. I like to think he is comically good. Like, I'm imagining building stuff out of Lego in Lego Star Wars. Like, you just hold the button and he just goes, boop, 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 and then it's built.
But he's so small; it has to take so long. So much longer to do anything. I feel like
Mando seems like a
getting up.
good listener for, hey, do this, do that, for all the stuff that you need size and strength for. Most of it's technique and know-how. I think I'm okay with that. I agree that it is unclear how much time it really took, but I don't think enough time that you have to worry about, like, oh, where are they getting food? Well, Kuil lives there, so they can get food and water. I don't think it's very long, and I'm not bothered by it needing to be longer than it's implied to be.
they're close to a Schnooks.
Yeah. That stupid shot of them walking to the Jawas at night, and Kuil says I'll take you there, and Mando's in the trailer for whatever reason. It makes sense because they have to haul all the stuff back. It just was a silly shot, I thought, or a silly shot idea. But Kuil's riding the Mudhorn, towing a trailer, and Mando's sitting in the trailer, and they gave it the Jurassic Park treatment where you just make it single lit, nighttime, rainy, and the Mudhorn, and everything looks fantastic. It's just a cheat code for special effects. It pisses me off because it's not that much better than the way the Mudhorn always looks, but yeah, it is. It looks 1,000 times better.
And I just don't want to overlook it, but there's the iconic line, too, where Mando talks about giving up his guns, and then he says that I'm Mandalorian, weapons are part of my religion. I remember the first time we heard that was like all anyone was posting. They were like, hell yeah, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I remember that, too. I was never as on board with this line. It sounds like 13-year-old Tumblr post. You know?
Too preachy for me. You know what I mean?
I like it quite a bit.
I need Hollywood to stay out of my politics.
They're talking about weapons and religion. The conversation with the Jawas, fantastic. Loved that interaction, because that's what we were talking about last week. When Mandalorians interact with each other and they're all just trying not to talk, it's shit. But if you get some chatty Jawas in there cracking jokes and the Mandalorian can just put in one wise line, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where things kind of start to not sit right in my head when I'm watching this episode. And unfortunately, it's pretty much the entire plot of this episode. He just vaporized so many of you guys, and then he chased you down, basically tried to hijack your ship or home, whatever it is to them. And then it's like he comes over here fully armed, and they just negotiate and just say, like, I'll tell you what, if you just get us this egg, we'll give you all your stuff back. It's like, what do Jawas value their life at? That like so many of them can die, and then they'll just be like, just get us an egg and you're good. So I'm like, this is a weird arrangement.
Maybe they're like ants or something, you know? It's just like the greater I feel like in Jawas in general feel more like the greater good over other individual
Yeah, the
individualness, I feel
sand
like.
crawler is the organism, and everyone is a part of it. But individualism is not emphasized in Jawa culture. I like everything that you're saying,
Which I
Matt.
can definitely get based on
Thank
the
you.
costuming. They do a good job of showing that on the costume. But
Hey, see?
I don't know. I'm just like they really went from fearing this man, rightfully so, to
Because
making a deal with him over an
we
egg.
know how intricate and well designed their costumes can be, so it must have been a choice to go poor, simple. That's a better word. It was a choice to go simple, and not a bad choice. Yeah, Jawa costumes are on the
Luke.
rise. Buy socks
Yeah,
now.
there we go. There we go. You have no idea how actual excited that makes me. Also, not to derail, but I feel like this is the perfect time to derail. Have you guys gotten these Cokes with with Star Wars on them? They do like the holograms
Yes.
or whatever. I love
Mine,
it.
I haven't got the bottles. I was getting cans. I don't know why. I forget, but I had like a 12-pack of Coke, and I was drinking one, and I looked at the can, and there was Darth Maul on it, and it was
Yeah.
like, I was like, what are they promoting right now?
It is confusing. They had a big event and stuff too for it, but this one brings me right back to 1999, and I got this in the Great White North, and that's why it's only 16 ounces or 500 milliliters, and I like an absolute freak saw this, walked past it, then they restocked them, and I was like, oh no, I really want the Padme one though, because it reminds me of like 99. So
I know exactly what you mean. I am a
through.
sucker for prequel era merch. It makes me really excited too. A Canadian Coke is 16 ounces. What's an American Coke?
Oh no, that was just the shop I got it at.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding. It was Canada. Sorry,
I was so confused.
it was. Yeah, it's only Unlike I literally felt like a fat American walking around there. But yeah, it's 16 ounces is like the standard.
What's the standard in America?
my
Is that
experience.
smaller? It must be smaller.
This 24 ounces is like if you go to like a gas
Oh,
station or something.
24. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
lot smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah. A can is 12 ounces. That's not that much bigger than a can.
I do feel significantly better about myself after drinking that though, being like 24 is too much. I don't need that.
Yeah.
I don't need this.
All right.
Anyway, that's all.
Mandalorian fights the Mudhorn. That's a good sequence. I think it's an appropriate. I am excited to talk every episode, every week about whether or not Mando gets his ass kicked or kicks ass. This one, he gets his ass kicked, obviously, but it's appropriate. This Mudhorn
Yes.
is far
Understandable.
beyond his capabilities, and that's not his fault. It is just a massive beast.
Yep.
I like the sequence. I like how I because I remembered this sequence, I guess, I thought it was going to be drawn out. It was not. It was a quick, snappy fight sequence. It ended a bit anticlimactically, not with the Grogu doing the force lift thing. That was awesome, and I loved it. But then he drops the Mudhorn, and Mando like kind of panics and stabs it with his knife. Not that
Yes,
deep, and
yep.
then he's dead. And I was like, oh, good, that was enough, because thank God.
oh,
But I thought that part was a bit anticlimactic. I don't know what else I would have wanted, but that jumped out at me. What did you guys think of this sequence?
I thought the same thing. I was like, you're going to have to stab this thing with like a 6-foot blade in order to kill it. And then he just kind of like takes a pocket knife to it and it dies. But I mean, I was also kind of already, I don't know, not being very generous with the episode by the time that I got to this point.
I thought it was cool. I mean, especially one watching it for the first time. I think I'm trying to view it from that lens, or like as a single story. I like the fact that that Grogu uses his power is the Force, right? Like that's the whole point of this scene. So I thought it was fine. I think they did a great job of like making Mandalorian look muddy. Like this is the dirtiest I've ever seen anybody in any TV show look. I feel like, but yeah, ultimately, I thought it was fine. I liked it. It was showing him versus a big beast. Again, you seeing him hand-to-hand combat with somebody his own size or smaller is kicking ass in this episode. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, so this makes sense that he's getting completely whooped. And I also do kind of like it feels like it doesn't go anywhere, but it feels like some sort of like Mandalorian code or something where he's just like, all right, I'm gonna go out, but I'm gonna go out stabbing this fucker if he like charges at me.
Yeah, I like that too.
But like, that always sticks with me. But then I also am like, well, what does he think's gonna happen to Grogu? Like he's about to get murked, and then this little thing is just gonna,
Yeah,
also get murked seconds after, I guess.
what are you
But
gonna
they don't have a
do?
connection yet.
And it's like, why are you like so honorable in this fight right now?
Yeah.
Like, if you're getting your ass kicked, just walk away and just be like, no, fuck this. I'm just gonna look for someone else that lives here and ask them if they can give me a ride.
Yeah.
Like, you've seen multiple people that live here. You got attacked by those Trandoshans. How did they get here? There's a ship somewhere on this planet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point, Maxwell.
The more I think about what we talked about last week also, the more excited I am to recontextualize my Mandalorian fandom away from toys and merchandise and more towards the actual show. Similarly, this week, the Muddy Mandalorian is its own toy, and it always pissed me off because it's like, for one, it was released well before I had my own Mandalorian toy, and I was like, I don't want a muddy one for my Mandalorian toy. Like, if you're
That's
gonna,
annoying.
people must, because they release so goddamn many of them. But, like, some people collect all of the Mandalorian toys. They have him icy, they have him with a Darksaber, without a Darksaber, with a Beskar spear, without a Beskar spear, muddy and not muddy, and his first armor and his second armor. I'm not that toy collector, so I get that those people are out there, but the muddy Mandalorian toy always pissed me off whenever I would see it. And so when I saw him here, I was like, you bastard. But within the context of the show, this is good. This is good for me. I'm very excited we're doing this rewatch.
I like how you like that sounds like you forgot that like the show happened. Like why are they selling me a dirty Mandalorian? It's like, oh yeah. That because it happened in the show.
As good as the show is, it is nothing compared to the merchandise line.
That's funny.
That's Star Wars for you, baby.
And then
That's why we're all here.
last thing to talk about, the egg. Joyful whimsy through and through. Love the egg sequence. It's hairy. What a good way to make an egg look like another world's egg than putting hair on it.
It reminds me of the inside of a pumpkin, and it just gives me the heebie-jeebies.
But it's like inverted because the inside's on the outside and then the orange is on the inside.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I love the way they eat it so haphazardly
With their hands.
Yeah, like
they're wearing gloves.
they're wearing gloves
That's
and robes.
Like, are they wearing masks? Where's this stuff
Yeah,
going?
it's the worst way to possibly share a delicacy, but I love it.
And you're okay with all of your friends and family dying over this? I don't know.
It's about the
You
colony.
have to think about it.
It was
Exactly.
whimsical.
You got to think about it. You not as a human being. You got to think about it as like an insect. You're just keeping on trucking, you know, like the Queen Alien and Alien. You really got to watch Alien, Max.
Kuiil and Mando then go and rebuild his ship. One beat that I forgot about was Mando asks Kuiil to like join his crew, which would have been a good way to make this episode less filler if Kuiil did join. I'm not saying it would have been, the show would have been better for it, but I did not remember that beat. And then it got me thinking, kind of sad for Mando that his crew just keeps coming and going and no one actually wants to be his crew except Grogu, who even leaves also for a little while. That man is just destined to be alone.
Yeah, he must be doing something wrong though.
Oh, and
There's some weird behind the scenes thing.
my actual last note was Kuiil says something along the lines of, I hope the child survives and brings you a good reward. And I was thinking in my head, like, oh, what's his reward going to be? And then I thought it's like the inverse of Luthen's speech. And it's like his reward is calm, kindness, and kinship and love. That's what he gets from Grogu.
Yeah.
That brings us to the end of the episode. Max, you already talked about the montage and how you didn't particularly like it. I liked it, but I mean, it's just a montage, you know. I didn't love it. And that brings us to
and then it
a
just
cool 28-minute episode, which is definitely on the short end. That's not including credits or opening credits, so yeah, more like 27 minutes of actual screen time. That's not including the intro or recap, which was substantial for a show that doesn't have that much plot. Pretty thorough recap, I noticed.
Yeah. I think that's another thing too, is that I feel like with that short time frame, that runtime, I feel like this is also, again, painting a bigger picture of what we're gonna come to expect from the show as a whole, where it's like, oh, interesting. Because I feel like, especially in 2019, it's even though it's not, that doesn't seem that long ago. Obviously, we've gone through a pandemic and yada yada yada. But like so much has changed, and I feel like even in media, where like I truly think this was like the start of like shows being, 6 episodes. I know it was happening before this, but this is like the start of like smaller episodes, smaller seasons. It is, I feel like, a lot different, and I think that this is one of the first shows to be like, hey, we're gonna spend like a lot of money per episode, and also we're gonna give you only 8 episodes, and also they're gonna be like 20 minutes. Be satisfied with that. Versus, what we've been used to. Even in 2018, I feel like that was like semi unheard of. And then I feel like this is really where it kind of started to take off. And it's like, oh, this is kind of a new standard of format we're going to be doing.
Which, although I love Star Wars and I want to give its praises, is definitely a trend for the worst. One thing I think about frequently is an old tweet that was like blew up when they were talking about this trend, and what they said was, if there was a show 20 years ago called Surf Dracula, it would be 24 episodes, and each episode would have Dracula on some sort of random adventure that requires him to surf at random intervals during every single episode. And if they made a show today called Surf Dracula, it would be 8 episodes, and the last episode would end with him picking up a surfboard.
Yes.
And it's like, that's so true. I hate that trend. As much as I hate the Monster of the Week theory, I'm like, that is how it works today. And my biggest critique with specifically Star Wars shows is I feel like the season 1s always end where I want the first episode to end. And I'm like, just keep going. That's it. Like, you got me hooked now. Now
Yep.
keep going.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
I have not heard
It's all
that.
about that legacy now.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy. I'm going to be chewing on that for a while. Yeah, I remember
I can't take credit for it, but I do think about it frequently.
I remember in 2019 when this show was coming out, and it was like the first. We said this last week. It was the first Star Wars TV show. Star Wars. We didn't know if it was going to be good, if the budget was there. My expectations were sky high after seeing the trailers and all the creators and like behind the scenes stuff and like the attention to lore. I thought it was going to be amazing. I was expecting like another Game of Thrones, not necessarily in quality, especially because I didn't even watch Game of Thrones, but like cultural significance. Like this is what everyone's going to watch for an hour on, I forget what day of the week it was coming out on then, maybe Wednesday. But I thought it was going to be as culturally significant as Game of Thrones. And right around the second episode, I was like, oh, this isn't really like Game of Thrones. It's not bad, and my expectations were clearly way too high, but it's not even trying to be that. And I mean, I probably couldn't have been if it did try to be it, because we got there was just so much content right after Game of Thrones in that like 1 or 2 year span that nothing could have been what Game of Thrones was. But sometimes I feel like people forget what Game of Thrones was because it died off so hard with season 8. Like I didn't watch it, and it was one of the most popular shows in my life. Like it was so popular from like 2013 to 19. That was everything in pop culture.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, that's a good point too, bringing up Thrones. Just the fact that I feel like it ended like the year before, maybe in 2019. I don't remember, but either way,
2019.
Like,
I watched season 8 because I wanted to fit in.
We were all there we go. I think we were all wanting the next Thrones, right? I think that was all the talk, is like, what's going to be the next Game of Thrones, and it turns out nothing is or has been, and I don't think it ever will. I think Thrones kind of was the last cultural TV show, and I don't think it killed that. I think that's just the way the full world worked, because clearly nothing came after that. I mean, they could have been making shows that were crazy and cool, but they are that level, but they just didn't, because I think the risk was too much, as we saw from the ending of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that is the format that I do want for a Star Wars show, and
Me
that
too.
I really wanted The Mandalorian to be. I wanted it to be a serious, dark and gritty, 10-hour long epic that's just broken up into 10 1-hour episodes, and so it was a major disappointment. And part of the reason why I don't really like this episode is because this is the episode that kind of like shattered that illusion, right? It's like, no, it's not going to be that.
Yep.
And after I kind of accepted that, obviously I love The Mandalorian for what it is, but I was disappointed by that. That said, I still, as far as like cultural significance, I would still say The Mandalorian is far more culturally significant than that Mandalorian is far more culturally significant than Game of Thrones. I don't know if I said that backwards.
What? More than Game of Thrones?
You think Mando's more culturally significant
Yes.
than Game of Thrones?
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I
Game
do.
of
I
Thrones is like
disagree.
everybody,
Like, peak for peak?
everybody
No,
watched.
Mandalorian is so much bigger. Every single person, not only knows what the Mandalorian is, they have something with Grogu's face on it. I mean, you can say it's not because they watched the show. You can say the show is not as good and all of that stuff. But cultural significance, The Mandalorian, I would say, is not even close in cultural significance.
I would say Grogu is bigger cultural significant wise. I don't think Mandalorian is at all.
You
I
can't
don't think.
You can't make
Well, I'm
that
not talking about the
distinction.
characters. I'm talking about the show as
Yeah.
a whole. Exactly.
I don't think
It's-
so. I mean, I
the
think
fact that it's tied to Star Wars too. I mean, the joke is that the Mandalorian is Star Wars now, and that basically is true. Like, this is their flagship property.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's crazy still.
something's got to be. I don't think it's crazy. I think peak for peak, I think Game of Thrones edges out The Mandalorian, but it is close. I think those are the two. I don't even know what would have been in the 2000s. Lost, probably. I'm trying to go like by
just so-
decade, show of the decade. For this decade, it's got to be Mandalorian,
Lost
right?
is.
Or at least so far. It's only 2025.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think
I would.
it's funny because I think there's huge shows. It's interesting. I don't know. It's a different thing because again, I can't equate Mandalorian. I know you said like you can't. People don't watch the show, or people that don't watch the show or whatever. But Game of Thrones, I think, was massive. I mean, you had beers being made of it. You had people reading the books. You had people watching the show that were getting into it. You had these huge cons. You had all these medieval fairs and stuff too. I think the iconography of Star Wars, I understand, is just bigger. But I think what Game of Thrones was able to do was nuts. I think Thrones is still bigger than Mandalorian. I mean, just for the fact of like every week people would sit around when I mean cultural significance, I mean like you would go to work the next day and people would talk about it, right? You see Grogu everywhere, sure, because Disney's got $1 million, right? Billions of dollars in Grogu invested alone. But if you went to work the next day, if you went to down the dorm room where we were at, everyone was talking about Game of Thrones. Mandalorian airs, and the three of us jerk-offs text about it, and that's it. Right, it stops there between the fans, and then there's some iconography out there. But Thrones was like a literal cultural touchstone event.
To be
don't
fair,
think Mandalorian has that.
I agree with you for the most part, but to be fair, Game of Thrones was coming out while you were enrolled in a liberal arts college, and Mandalorian came out while we're working with kids. It's like it's different.
Game of Thrones,
in terms of who
that's
you
the thing,
interact
Game of-
with.
And everything you said about Game of Thrones absolutely applies to Mandalorian
Oh my-
too.
No way.
People are reading the books. People are watching the shows. Yes, people know everything about this. People who aren't even watching the shows know everything that's going on about it. Like this. People didn't know what Game of Thrones, what the plot was, who the different characters were, unless you watched the show. Like they had heard the names, but like maybe somebody recognized the name Khaleesi, but like you couldn't say anything about her. This show, you could not watch a lick of it and say like, oh yes, that's Grogu. I know him. He's with the Mandalorian. And like you can.
I
don't-
object to
I
that.
don't
I
think-
did not watch
Right
Game
now.
of
I agree.
Thrones, but I knew Khaleesi
no,
was the breaker of trains, mother of dragons, rode on dragons.
there we go.
That is a very
also-
one-to-one
there's-
correlation, or very one-to-one analogy with Grogu.
And I think more people know Grogu than knew Khaleesi.
Absolutely.
By
I would
quantity,
say
yes.
Mandalorian right now is still at its peak.
Yes. And I don't. I
At
think
Game
there's
of Thrones peak.
a reason why people still call. People don't know who Din Djarin is, right? People still don't call Grogu Grogu. They call him Baby Yoda. I know the whole family, the whole Matthews' family, don't have never seen the show. They think Baby Yoda's cute because Baby Yoda's cute. And that's cool, but that's not, I don't think that's the cultural, Grogu, like I said, is the cultural touchstone, but I think that is like also built in with like the Star Wars lore, so Star Wars in general, yes, I would say is a bigger, I mean, that's still the biggest cultural touchstone in media, I think, of all time. I think, so Mandalorian is baked into that, yes, but I think it is so vastly different for Thrones, this random show that to be picked up from a book to be then, I mean, that is like, I would say Sopranos could be a cultural touchstone, but I think HBO was limited in the early 2000s. And that's the thing too, Luke. I think Game of Thrones started when I was in high school and then went through when I was in college and then ended up me being an adult. And it still carried through all of those generations of life. Like me and Mike, my brother, would watch it in the car on trips, right? And then we'd get to somewhere and we'd talk to somebody, like the shop owner behind the counter about the, season 2 of Game of Thrones or whatever, see if they saw it, and then in college we'd all get together and watch it because we all had this common interest. And then after college we would all text about it. Again, I don't know anybody else that watches Mandalorian truthfully besides you two, and your family, but like I don't talk to anybody else about it besides you guys. Like out of everybody I know, no one is on the throne. No one still watches Mandalorian. Like our friend Josh doesn't. Travis definitely doesn't. My brothers don't anymore. Like it's crazy to me. And maybe this is just my perspective as well. Obviously, it's just my perspective. But I still think Thrones, from a cultural touchstone point, is still bigger than Mandalorian. Overall, with that being said, Grogu is bigger in general.
You are so wrong about this. You can say that it's more impressive what Game of Thrones accomplished, given that it was just like a pretty obscure series of books. Like, that's fair. Mandalorian is absolutely standing on the shoulders of giants. Like, it would not be as big as it is if this isn't Star Wars.
Yeah.
But just because it was born on third base doesn't mean that it's not a bigger cultural phenomenon. Like you said, all of those people who don't watch the show are very, very well acquainted with this show. They know exactly what it is. They know exactly who the characters are. And
I don't know if they do. I think they know Baby Yoda's cute. I think that's it. I don't think they could tell you what.
That's all they need.
But I don't. That's not the
world
show.
By storm.
No, because
they're making theme parks after these fucking people.
No,
that is absolutely enough.
That's
you don't need to watch the show for it to be a cultural phenomenon. If you were so inundated with it, everyone's buying the merch.
Grogu is a cultural phenomenon. One of the biggest, if not the biggest, cultural phenomenon in the past 20 years. The show itself is not. I don't think anybody could tell you any sort of thing that's going on. No one's talking about the next episode because the show. If you're going comparing Thrones versus
like
Mandalorian,
Luke said, I just don't think you can. I don't think
it's
you
not
can just
interesting.
distinguish Grogu from the show like that, though.
But that's
because
what a
then you're
show
just going off of
is.
viewership. You're just saying you think more people watched Game of Thrones at its peak than Mandalorian
No,
at its peak.
no,
but
no.
that's not.
I
That's
don't
not
know.
what makes it a cultural phenomenon.
I agree, but I think in order to, I mean, Thrones, you had to be at least a fan. No one was attaching a cute, cuddly character onto Game of Thrones, and that would have became a bigger thing, I think, then as well. I mean, Thrones, I think, as a TV show, as a cultural touchstone, is huge. I mean, Mandalorian, again, I don't hear anybody talking about it after every episode besides, this corner of the internet of us Star Wars nerds that are still hanging on. But I think Thrones, at the end of the day, in general, it's hard to distinguish because I know what you're saying too, Max. Is like I mean, Grogu is everywhere. You can see Grogu everywhere, but it also is because he's a cute, cuddly thing, and I think, it's hard, but I don't want to also degrade media into the fact that it's a cute, cuddly thing, and then that's what everyone has plastered everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, as an actual medium of TV and cultural touchstone, Thrones, I think, did something very impressive and got everybody talking about it, where I don't think anybody talks about Thrones or Mandalorian besides how cute Grogu is. It's such a different thing. I think, like, it's like the same thing with Gizmo coming out with the Gremlins, right? People all knew Gizmo, but not necessarily, which is the same thing as the creator of Gremlins always complains about how they just stole his idea and Grogu looks just like Gizmo from Gremlins, It's like attaching this cute thing, and everyone knew what Gizmo was, but nobody knew, watched in Gremlins in comparison. But it's like this little, toy of the year took off, sure, but what was like the basis of it? I don't think people really care.
I can't deny that your personal experience is more Game of Thrones.
But the same thing with Baby Groot, right? Like, it's the same. It's a different thing. Baby Groot, it's like Baby Groot blew the fuck up. But it's like it's like that was a cultural touchstone too. But like, it's the same. It's a different thing. It's cute, cuddly thing is like, I don't know. It's a different thing.
But
Sorry.
why are you differentiating that though? Why does that not make why would that not make Guardians of the Galaxy a cultural phenomenon? I mean, like, I feel like you're just trying to stick too close to like viewership, and
No,
I just don't.
I think
agree with that.
I think it's a hand in hand thing, right? I mean, I think it's a lot easier when you have a show made for all ages and a cute, cuddly thing that's going to sell product. It's a different tactic, right? I mean, the Grogu is made to sell product, right? Like at the end of the day, like they're like, this thing is going to be huge because Baby Groot was huge, and they keep trying to do that,
And Rada.
thing, right? What's Rada?
Rada the
Rada,
Hutt, we'll see.
Rada,
Oh,
that
Rada
was
the
Dave
Hutt.
Filoni's first try to make a cultural phenomenon.
Exactly. So we'll see. I just think it's
And his second. He's coming back in Mandalorian Grogu. Don't you worry.
He's gonna get it right this
Yeah, I don't
time.
know.
I will say I remember distinctly watching Mandalorian season 2 while I was working, and not at the same time. I mean, it came out while I was employed, and I talked to everyone at work about Mandalorian. I feel the exact same way about Mandalorian as you did about Game of Thrones. Like everyone knew I was a huge Star Wars fan, so they would want to talk to me about it. But yeah, I talked about it week to week with like 6 different people.
You have a fulfilling life, my friend. I had to start reproducing in order to have those conversations, I think.
I appreciate that you did bring up several examples of people that don't watch Mandalorian, because I really feel like everyone in my life watches Mandalorian. I'm having a hard
I
time
don't
thinking
know
of
that, buddy.
friends or family or acquaintances that don't watch it. Like,
That's because
Again.
everyone you talk to isn't jaded.
they're not jaded, and
Which
they
is
know how
nice.
much I love Star Wars, and they know how much I love talking about Star Wars. So if anyone does happen to watch Mandalorian, they definitely talk about it with me, which I appreciate. Don't stop, listeners. But that also skews my perspective. But I think this discussion ended or this debate ended where all of our debates ends, where it comes down to semantics about what qualifies a cultural phenomenon. That will.
I think semantics be damned. Mandalorian's way bigger.
That's so crazy to me.
Next,
Nobody watches the show.
I'm gonna bone up on my Lost
They don't
lore,
need
and
to.
next week I'll come in hot with Lost being the biggest cultural phenomenon of the 2000s of the century.
I could see that. I could see Lost being
Lost
there,
was a big deal.
up there. It was huge. Yes, exactly. People talked about it. You talked to your grandma about it. I talked to my grandparents about Game of Thrones. If I show them Mandalorian, they're like, "What the fuck is this?" Anyway,
I'm gonna end it here. We're gonna go ahead. We're gonna move on to Force for Thoughts.
why? Because we can talk about this all night.
Because
Luke?
we can talk about this all night, and I have a feeling it's gonna come up briefly, at least every episode for the next 22
No,
now.
It won't.
I'm trying so hard to bite my tongue because I'm still coming up with more examples in my head that I really want to get off my chest. I'll
Maybe
save
for our
them.
Mandalorian rewatch series, we'll have a second segment at the end, in addition to Force for Thought, of Thrones versus Grogu, and we can rehash this every week. We'll probably do that whether or not we structure it that way anyway. But in terms of Force for Thought for tonight, I had one. I was watching Rogue One, and it's the one with Galen Erso where he is forced to design the Death Star, but he doesn't want to do it, so he puts a faulty
that's right,
whatever.
that's
Despite not wanting to do it and working quote unquote as a rebel the whole time, he documented the shit out of his workflow and study such that they were able to reproduce what took 20 years to build the first time in just 3 years again. I've worked in technical fields, and I can tell you documentation is every single worker's bane of their existence. No one wants to document their work, and he did it really, really well despite not wanting to work there. That's professionalism.
3 things. Because people try to bring this up as like some sort of weird plot hole. Like, oh, it took them 20 years to build the first Death Star, but only, I guess, 6? It would have been
3.
6, right? For the second one? It would have been 3 from A New Hope to Empire, and then Empire to Jedi would have been another 3.
Empire to Jedi is only 1 year,
it
so
would be
4.
6. Was it? What? Oh, okay. So 4 years? But A, like you said, documentation. They did it once. It's easier to do it again, especially if you know how to do it. B, you have everyone working on it who actually wants to work on it. Obviously, Galen Erso was in addition to documenting how to build it, he was also prohibiting it from moving forward. I mean, he was clearly sabotaging it from the inside or whatever, slowing down tests or something. And then 3 is a lot of people think that they started building the second Death Star after the first one blew up. And I don't know why we think that. I mean, this second Death Star could have been started halfway through production of the first one.
Oh, that's got
I
to be
agree.
canon.
No,
What?
we've talked
Where,
about this
though?
as well.
I don't remember
Let me
where-
find it. I don't know. Go ahead and talk more.
All right.
I agree, Max.
Well, if you need me to vamp, I'll start talking about Ninja Turtles being a cultural phenomenon.
Were they?
Yeah. The show or the movies?
It is. That's the thing. The shows are the movies. That's part of my point and why you don't even need to watch the show, because it doesn't matter what it is. It's actually a comic, but people don't read the comics. So I could be like, oh, this other obscure comic is more of a cultural phenomenon because more people read the comics. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because everyone knows what the fucking Ninja Turtles are.
That is true. I still feel like Mandalorian's a
I've been
weird
reading a lot
example,
of
though.
Ninja Turtles lately, so that's also top of mind.
I don't like when it gets dark. I like when Ninja Turtles are fun.
I can't find it. I'm convinced that it's canon that they started building it after the destruction of the first one. Because why would you build a second one if you think the first one's already indestructible and gonna fix all your problems? They didn't think there was a snowball's chance in
Why would you
hell.
only build one?
Why would you only build one? We're talking about a Death Star here. That's like building a second Golden Gate
They thought
Bridge
the
at the same time as the first one, just in case the first one breaks. Like, no, you're doing just the one.
That's ridiculous. You wouldn't build a second bridge right next to it, but they build multiple bridges all the time. The Titanic was one of 3, and they thought that ship was going to be indestructible.
But you didn't need just
Well,
one
surely
Titanic.
If you're building one Death Star, 2 is going to be better. Like, that's such an obvious leap. You're building this indestructible space station capable of destroying planets. Of course, someone's going to be like, hey, I got an idea. I think I know what's better than this. 2 of them.
I can't even tell if you're serious right now. You sound so stupid.
Why does that sound stupid? That somebody might have suggested that they have a second Death Star at some point?
Yes.
Didn't we talk about how Palpatine doesn't take chances and stuff? He always has a failsafe, right? Like that's what we're talking. I think that
Yes.
we talked.
That's an excellent point.
Well, we've talked about this before. We've litigated this
this.
conversation.
No, I had no chance.
Specifically for the Death
And you
Star,
think
though?
I was not vehemently against this idea?
I'm pretty sure we've talked about this. You might have been against it too. I would love to find that episode. We need to
There's
start a wiki. But I swear to God, we've talked about this because I think I was also in agreement that like that fact that I think that also proves Palpatine's like that character trait in him is that he's always always a failsafe. Nothing's up for chance.
okay.
So
Well,
you're-
the
of
second
course
one
you're gonna
blew
build
up
two.
too. Was he building a third?
Hey, you only get so many shots. You got only so much money.
You know
can't
what's
put
he
was,
all
he
the
was
dead
building
Joes
an
in prison.
entire fleet.
You know what's even better
Building an
than
entire
3 Death
fleet on
Stars
Exegol,
is
Luke.
4 Death Stars. Where does it end?
Fleet of them. On Exegol.
Those weren't Death Stars,
I have
though.
the answer.
Those weren't Death Stars. That was a different thing.
They each have the ability to destroy planets.
they're-
they were each their own
They're
Death
super
Star.
weapons, yeah, but they're not Death Star, because Death Star, it's not just building more than one planet-killing machine. It's a moon. It is you just can't. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I don't want to fight about this anymore because there very may be a canon answer that I just don't know about. But as somebody who knows quite a bit of the canon, I don't know where they ever explicitly say that the second Death Star began production after the first.
As someone who's building a genocidal weapon,
Actually, was it the crawl of Return of the Jedi? What does the crawl of Return of the Jedi say?
It doesn't
a
say
fair move,
when they
Max.
started building it. It does. It says construction has begun. Pull it up.
oh shit!
I'm pulling it up. Hold on. One of the things that's a quote. That's not the crawl. Oh my gosh. That is why.
Episode 7. I knew I should have just gone straight to Disney Plus.
Max, I'm still
Google
going
is
back and
useless.
forth between this cultural phenomenon because cultural phenomenon, I'm still going back and forth because I totally agree with you on one aspect, and the other aspect I just totally disagree with you in too. It's hurting my head going back and forth.
I appreciate you vamping Matt while Max and I do this research, but I really don't want to relitigate that conversation right now.
No, neither do I. I'm just saying I'm actually so close to. I'm just like
I do want to relitigate it, but now I'm.
Little does
busy
Luke
trying to
know
look
that the
this up.
Galactic Empire has secretly begun construction on a new armored space station even more powerful than the first dreaded Death Star. So that's vague. That could have been they secretly begun construction 15 years ago.
Yeah. When does construction begin? Because, like, clearly, if the space station was operational, I mean, they didn't begin it that morning.
No, I think they did it shortly after the destruction of the first one.
But I don't think you can read that into the crawl of Return of the
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more just context that their first one blew up, and they wanted a second one.
yeah.
Well,
But when?
okay, so the question still stands, though. We don't have...
I will find it.
Off the top of our heads, we will have to do more research to find the canon answer. But if one of our listeners knows, please reach out to us because you can save us a lot of time and energy. You can reach out to us at Gmail at forceforthought@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us across social media at Force for Thought.
Thanks
Jamie.
for listening. I missed the whole sign off. I'm reading a Reddit thread about when they started building the second Death Star. Just cut to credits.
All right, here we go.